Hello everyone, I'm JG and welcome back to Music Forever, where today I'm going to be reviewing the newest EP from Big K.R.I.T, Double Down. This EP is a follow-up to a completely different EP that Big K.R.I.T only dropped a couple weeks ago. I did review that here on my channel. If you want to check that out, it's linked in the description down below. But overall, the short version on my thoughts of that EP were that I thought it was a pretty solid project overall. It was pretty enjoyable, a nice addition to his discography, and a nice little project to come in between full-length projects, between his last full-length studio album, Forever is a Mighty Long Time, that came out last year. I thought that was a fantastic album as well. But basically, I thought that last EP was going to be a nice little, something in between albums. But based on this new EP here, that may not necessarily be the case, considering that, of course, now it's another EP, and there seems to be a sort of countdown pattern present across these two EPs, with the first one being 3, this one being 2, and I'm just curious to find out what happens when we reach 1. Are we going to get a single track? Are we going to get a full-length project, maybe an album or a mixtape? I'm not exactly sure, but whatever it is, I'm very excited to see if we are going to be getting something, and whatever it is, I will try to review it here on the channel. But as for this EP itself, I also think that this is a pretty solid EP overall. It's pretty enjoyable. I don't think I like it quite as much as the last EP he dropped a few weeks ago, but I think that is in part just because that one was had a bit more to it, I felt, with the 3 tracks as opposed to only the 2 tracks on this one, even though the runtimes of both EPs end up being very similar to one another, just because the 2 tracks on this one add up to about the same runtime as the last one. It's still a very solid project overall. I think overall the tracks on this project are just a lot more in your face and banging from start to finish than some of the ones from the last EP as well. The first track on this thing, Learn from Texas, is a pretty solid cut. The only thing on this track that I'm not super hot on is kind of the vocal manipulations going on at times in the hook of the track. They don't completely ruin the song for me or anything, but I'm just not the biggest fan of them overall. But aside from that, K.R.I.T.'s flow on this track is great. The production is pretty good as well, and overall it just makes for a pretty solid song from start to finish. And then the second track on this thing, Pick Yourself Up, has a fantastic beat to it. I really love the production here on this track. Easily, probably my favorite production out of any of the tracks to appear either on this EP or the last one that he dropped. It's really a well-produced track. And Big K.R.I.T on this track, he's, once again, flowing like crazy. The hook on this track I like more than the first track on this thing. I also think it's pretty catchy. It's just overall a pretty solid song as well. Both of the tracks here on this EP, as far as lyrics go, I think that they're pretty well written, though I would say that they're not exactly the most interesting lyrically. Like, the lyrics here aren't necessarily bad, but they're not exactly super interesting either, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially given the more straightforward approach that these tracks have going for them. I don't think that's necessarily a terrible thing. And these tracks still manage to be pretty enjoyable, despite the fact that I don't find the lyrics to be super interesting, really. Overall, if you're a fan of hip-hop or Big K.R.I.T, I think you're going to get some enjoyment out of this EP, considering that there's a fair bit here to really have fun with. Like I said, the beats are pretty solid throughout. Big K.R.I.T's rapping is fantastic throughout, as per usual, and these 2 tracks are just pretty fun overall as well, which is always a pretty solid thing. Like I said, there are a couple things on this EP that I'm not the biggest fan of, but they don't really get in the way all too much of me enjoying these couple of tracks. I still think this is a very solid EP from start to finish, and worth checking out if you're a fan of Big K.R.I.T or hip-hop music in general. But yeah, that's just my own personal thoughts on this EP. Not all too much to talk about here in this review, but it's not a particularly long EP anyway. So yeah, if you enjoyed this review, I'd greatly appreciate if you'd leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel for more music-related content. I will be reviewing any other Big K.R.I.T projects in the future, maybe even including another project from him if he's planning on dropping one in the very near future, as I have kind of guessed may happen. If you're curious on seeing my thoughts on that whenever it drops, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can see that when it comes out. And like I said before, if you want to see my review of the first EP he dropped this year, it's linked in the description down below, and I'll also put it up on screen here at the end of the video so you could check it out through there as well. But yeah, that's just my own thoughts on this EP. Thank you for watching, and stay golden.